So let's talk a little bit about work. So work is truly sacred because work is the connection between the self and the other. How you relate to the other is fundamentally what you contribute to the other, which is basically what you do in the world. So, in a state of delusion and misperception that we typically indulge in by believing that we are the separate body mind identity, we are in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, as we've discussed before, and we're trying to enlarge our boundaries, our horizons, our the amount of life that we have experienced. Basically, we're trying to expand that at all points. So, if you're working from the perspective of being the separate body mind, you tend to treat work as a means to an end because the only thing the separate body mind wants is to lose its separateness and thereby re-attain perfection. Because, as we've discussed earlier, the separation between the body mind and the cosmos is an arbitrary limitation that the mind imposes upon truth, which is limitless and boundless and non-dual, meaning there is no duality, there is no self and other. It's just the absolute truth appearing as both the self and other, the infinite perfect absolute truth appearing as both the self and the other. So if you're not in perception of perfection here and now, work will be a means to an end for you because you are trying to grow through your work. You're trying to be more than what you are through your work, and therefore you tend to treat work as a means to an end, and you tend to focus on the fruits of the action instead of the action itself. But if you look closely, the result of the action and the process of performing the action are inseparable. The 12 years of practice I've put into the guitar are the, the result, are the reason I can play the guitar as I can play the guitar now. But the audience can only hear the final product. So if you practice guitar from the perspective of being what you visualize yourself as in your dreams, you miss 98% of the process, which is the journey of getting there. So, focusing on the fruits of actions causes you to try and run away from the process of getting the fruits of actions because that is the painful aspect of the process. But pain and pleasure are inextricably linked. The pleasure of being good at the guitar is inextricably linked to the pain of practicing. So, work becomes a spiritual practice if you realize the perfection of the absolute truth, because in face of the perfection of the absolute truth there is no longer any need to derive anything from your work. Therefore you no longer focus on the fruits of the actions because the work is not an ulterior, there is no ulterior motive to be attained through that work, because perfection implies the end of desire, and action becomes meaningless in the when we consider the fact that the absolute truth is perfect here and now. Action becomes meaningless in the sense that there is no longer anything to be gained or lost by doing or not doing anything. So step one is to realize the perfection of the absolute truth, and in face of the and in light of the perfection of the absolute truth and the fact that there is only the absolute truth, every moment is seen to be a unique expression of that absolute truth, appearing as that moment, as the form that that moment takes. So every moment is treated as sacred, and therefore the process of working is as enjoyable as the result of the action itself. And if you're coming from this place, you are in a state of karma yoga, where you're simply working without any expectations of the fruits of action. And this is the greatest spiritual practice because it unites the self and the other. via the activity that one performs. So, work is worship. Every instant spent working on whatever it is that you work on is engagement with the absolute truth, and that is the greatest privilege. Every instant, every moment is a unique expression of the absolute truth, and the absolute truth is perfect. So there is no desire for the fruits of action, and work is just a joyous expression of perfection.